Right now, authorities are not treating this as any kind of act of terrorism. In fact, we heard from the FBI saying that there was no link to terrorism. Yet earlier today, ISIS was trying to take credit for this. Let's go right now to Dr. Sebastian Gorka, an expert in terrorism himself. He is also the chief strategist at the Make America Great Coalition. Good to have you here. What is your reaction to this? Why is ISIS out there trying to claim this in any way, Dr. Gorka, when the FBI is saying there's no link?
Well, look, ISIS has a track record of doing this in recent history. There's been two cases, at least two cases, one in Manila, one in France, where they really could not establish any connection between ISIS's claim and the actual attack. It is very early days. The FBI said there's no connection at the moment. Demographically, this individual doesn't fit in. 60% of all the plots in the United States by ISIS, by jihadists, have included perpetrators between the ages of 16 and 26. So this guy in his mid-60s does not fit the demographic. So either this is another kind of terrorist. Let's think about what this concert was, country music. It was a conservative kind of gathering. Or the other thing, it's just a psychotic. It's a serial killer. It's somebody who had a psychotic break. We will know in the next few days.
Yes. Dr. Gorka, do you think it's possible that ISIS feels so desperate now? In other words, we have made a lot of inroads in terms of going after them, that they want to be able to scare people in any way they can. I mean, historically, they hadn't come out and claimed attacks that weren't theirs. But now, you mentioned two incidents, and now possibly this one. Again, we don't know anything in its entirety yet, and they'll discover more information. But why would ISIS want to do that?
Well, look, there's a couple of reasons. They may be doing this out of desperation. You look at what Secretary Mattis, what our forces are doing in the region, the liberation of Mosul. As one Tier 1 operator told me, we're stacking the bad guys like cordwood. So ISIS is under immense pressure. But that doesn't mean they're necessarily on the ropes just yet. Look at the recent attacks just in the last few days in Marseille, in Canada. So it could be desperation, it could be factual, or the last thing is, really, Trish, just to mess with us, just to dissipate our investigative capacities, because instead of looking at the case itself as sui generis, as a one-off, now they think, well, now they're going to have to put more of our CT assets, our counterterrorism investigative assets onto this case. So it could be any one of those cases at the moment.
Well, you mentioned that this guy did not fit the profile of what you would see as a jihadist. And, he was a 62-year-old former accountant. He did work at Lockheed Martin, which may be of some interest given the weaponry that he was using. This was pretty sophisticated stuff, not easy weaponry to get, Dr. Gorka.
Well, look, all we know is that there were at least 10 long guns in the room when the police found his dead body, potentially other handguns. If you listen to the audio, I think there's a unanimous agreement that this individual was using a fully automatic weapon because of the length of the bursts that he was initiating. It could even have been a belt-fed machine gun. So those kinds of weapons are incredibly difficult to get hold of. We haven't allowed the import of those weapons since the 1980s for private ownership. So it's a closed market unless it was stolen from a military facility. We don't know that as of yet. He doesn't have a military background, apparently doesn't have a criminal record that would indicate terrorist connections. But yes, this was the point that he was firing from a point of high altitude, more than 1,000 feet away. That's a deadly, deadly tactic.
Do you think he could have been working with someone, Dr. Gorka, or do you think this was a sole attack?
Look, I've always said that since 9/11, there is no such thing as real lone wolf terrorism in the jihadi context. I'm not talking about Timothy McVeigh or others. If you look at all the significant cases, not peripheral ones like sad cases like, a jihadi Jane, but serious plots, the Boston bombing, Fort Hood, even if it's one perpetrator, like in Fort Hood, there's always some connection along the way to an indoctrinator, to a recruiter, to somebody who sanctioned it. In the case of Major Nidal Hassan, what happened? It was actually Anwar al-Awlaki that encouraged him and gave him the religious sanction to kill his fellow servicemen in Fort Hood. So a lone wolf of the jihadi variety is a misnomer, doesn't exist, but it doesn't mean that this could be a one man with a psychological issue and just decided to kill as many people as he could with this weapon.
Well, we'll find out, I would think, in the coming days. Dr. Gorka, thanks for being here.